right. Hello. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We know people will be trickling in. Hopefully, we'll have a great audience participating in our open doors, open meeting. We are from the Christina Lee Brown Environment Institute at the University of Louisville, and we're a group of physicians, scientists, engineers, epidemiologists, economists, psychologists, physiologists, statisticians, the list goes on and on. But a group of scientists and community members that work to turn scientific discovery into actionable knowledge. So our researchers here study how conditions of the human environment promotes health or can contribute to disease. So the next question is probably pretty obvious. What is the environment? And so we see the environment in three different domains. The natural, this is our environment around us. So this includes our location, the climate, the geography, and even the plants and animals that contribute to our well-being or otherwise. And then we have our social environments. And this really is what transforms the influence of the natural environment. And so this includes our social interactions with the environment, our knowledge and access to education about it, the built environment, buildings, transportation, and green space, trees around us. And then there's also within our environment, our exposure to pollution, air, water, soil, noise pollution. And then we also have our personal environments. And these are the conditions closest to us. And they're formed in a number of ways. It could be by chance, it could be by circumstance, and at times it can be by choice, but this includes our nutrition, our housing, and our occupation. So that's a little snapshot of who the Environment Institute is and the philosophical model of how we approach research. But I like to pause for my colleagues. Are there others in the group that would like to add to who we are?
Natasha, you may have mentioned it, but I think one important defining feature of the environment is studying the interconnectedness of those three domains. And so really we think understanding how our natural environment impacts our social and impacts our personal environment may maybe kind of unveil new aspects of health and promoting health, preventing disease that might be important that hasn't been considered previously.
Absolutely. That is the great advantage of our work and the way that we approach this differently than many other groups. Excellent, Jason. Are there others that have additional thoughts to fill in?
Sure. So my name is Lauren, and I'm from the Center for Healthy Air, Water, and Soil. And we do sit in the Division of Environmental Medicine. And so we bring to the table that there's no way to achieve true health without those resources of healthy air, water, and soil around us.
Absolutely. So we're building a very strong research base to support and inform decision-making that promotes healthy environments around all of us. Wonderful, thank you for sharing. And we're so grateful to those who have tuned in for our Open Doors meeting. But I'm sure you want to know, why are we having this meeting? Lauren, would you like to share a little bit more with you about the purpose of our live office hours?
Sure. So this is the communication team for the Environment Institute, and we just wanted to provide an opportunity for folks in the public to connect with us, whether that's in Louisville or elsewhere, and also to create a space where we can hear from anyone who may be interested in our work to ask us about our research or how we are working to make Louisville a healthier place.
Absolutely. And with that, we very much welcome people to send questions in at any time. We'll be glad to take your questions. And we have questions for you as well. But you probably also want to know a little bit about who we are. This may be a group of folks, maybe you're familiar with some of us and not others, or maybe all of us are new faces to you. So we'd love to have the chance to introduce ourselves to you. I am Dr. Natasha D. Jarnett. And I am an assistant professor at University of Louisville in the Environment Institute. And I began my faculty position here at the university last fall. And I researched the relationship between heat and cardiovascular disease, as well as environmental health disparities. I also serve in our community engagement course for our Superfund research project and our Green Heart project. And we'd love to continue to share with you about those. I also teach at George Washington University, a course on environmental health. In terms of my background, I went to Western Kentucky University for my bachelor's degrees in chemistry and biology. After that, I worked a few years in industry doing research and development and found my way to University of Louisville's School of Public Health and Information Sciences. And I got my master's in public health and concentrated in environmental health. And then I also got my PhD here from U of L, concentrating in environmental health science. And my research interest and what I did for my dissertation was looking at the relationship between air pollution and heart disease risk. I went on to complete my postdoctoral training here and was able to dig even further into that topic, looking in an environmental epidemiology study here in Louisville, the Louisville Healthy Heart Study. And since then, I went and worked for the American Public Health Association and the National Environmental Health Association. They're two nationwide national nonprofit membership associations. And there I led their work around climate and health, environmental partnerships, as well as research. So I'm happy to pass the baton to Jordan to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Jordan Lynch, and I graduated with my PhD last year from the University of Louisville in pharmacology and toxicology. I also earned undergraduate degrees and another master's at different universities in Illinois, and then came to U of L for a second master's in the Pharm Tox program before continuing on to my PhD research. And I kind of worked with Natasha somewhat in the Louisville Healthy Heart Study for my master's and my dissertation at U of L, and likewise looked at the effects of air pollution exposure on cardiovascular disease. I also looked more specifically at personal exposures, so things such as cigarette use or occupational exposures, and specifically looking at different compounds in cigarettes and electronic cigarettes and the effect on a particular cell population that helps keep your blood vessels healthy. I am currently a postdoctoral associate in the Superfund Research Center's Community Engagement Core. So I'm working with the researchers in the Superfund Center to help disseminate the information that they produce with their various experiments and research projects to get that information to the public in an understandable fashion, make it easily accessible, and also then communicating with the general public about questions they may have about health, the community, different questions about their environment and how that may impact their life, and then how we can help them either eliminate or lessen the exposure to different toxic compounds in order to have better health. So I will pass the baton on to Antigone.
Thanks, Jordan. Hi, everyone. My name is Antigone Mihani, and I am also part of the team. I don't do the fun stuff, which I'm still waiting for Dr. Hellmann to accept me as the intern. But what I do is amplify the voices and the research that's being done here at the Environment Institute. And so my role as a director of development is to connect our community, corporations and foundations with the environment, and finding ways and avenues to continue and support the research, the very important research. And a lot of my days have been now where I'm reading the research of our fellow speakers today. And in fact, Jordan and Dr. DeJarnette, I just read both of you, well, I say read lightly, but I skimmed a little bit of your research on the Louisville Healthy Heart project. And want to mention that because it's such an important project and something that I hope to find avenues of funding to continue that and go back to our community and find other opportunities to ensure that the study really continues. And I know with this fine group of people here, we can do that. So with all, please, hands of applause for Dr. Hellman.
Lauren, would you like to go next?
Sure. So my name is Lauren, and again, I'm with the Center for Healthy Air, Water, and Soil, where we research how those fundamental parts of our ecosystem affect our health. So one of our major areas of research right now is looking at Louisville sewer water for evidence of levels of infection for COVID-19, as well as variants here in Louisville. We are also very interested in what air pollution does to our immune systems and how that is related to cardiovascular disease. And so with our recent spate of particulate matter air quality warnings that are coming over because of the smoke from the wildfires out west, there's a lot of different places where we can look to do this really interesting research that we do. Awesome. Thank you, Jason. On to you.
Fantastic. Well, I'm Jason Hellman. I'm an assistant professor in the Diabetes and Obesity Center here at the University of Louisville. And in the Diabetes and Obesity Center, obviously, we're really interested in understanding causes of obesity-induced insulin resistance. And, at its core, we think that, diabetes and obesity is a cardiovascular disease. And so a lot of the expertise within the center is centered around cardiovascular system. As we know, many, if not all, diabetics end up dying from cardiovascular disease. So anyway, I'm born and raised in Louisville, completed my bachelor's degree in 2006 at the University of Louisville, joined the Diabetes Obesity Center after that and completed my PhD in 2011. After 3 years of doing a postdoctoral training here, relocated to Boston and completed 2 years of training at the Brigham and Women's Harvard Medical School, understanding the role of inflammation resolution in the context of diabetes and insulin resistance. After completing that training, I was fortunate enough to be recruited back to the University of Louisville as assistant professor, where I've gained an interest in new, let's just say, love for understanding exercise. So during my postdoctoral training, we had found that inflammation resolution was delayed or defective during obesity-induced insulin resistance. And so if I can get my screen to share here, I'm just going to briefly describe a recent publication that we were fortunate enough to get published in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition. We were trying to extend some results that we found in an animal model of exercise training in these mice that were subjected to exercise training for a month. We see that the production of these lipids that are important in turning off inflammation, these pro-resolving lipids, were upregulated following exercise training. And so, interestingly, those animals were able to better fight off a sterile infection and resolve their inflammatory challenge better than sedentary controls. And so we wanted to try to gain some information and insights into whether or not this may also be important in the human context. And so in doing that, we decided to look in the NHANES data set. And so looking at 435 individuals that were participated in the NHANES study between 2003 and 2004, you can see the demographics on the bottom left. What we were able to show is that this has actually been shown multiple times, that your VO2 max, or your cardiorespiratory fitness, which is a very strong predictor of mortality, is known to inversely correlate with the levels of CRP, which are markers of systemic inflammation. So the better cardiorespiratory fitness you have, the lower systemic inflammation. And so we were interested in understanding if fatty acids might play an effect modifying role in this inverse correlation. And so we looked at how tertiles of fatty acids, such as saturated fats, monounsaturated fats, and polyunsaturated fatty acids, might inversely or modify this inverse association. And what we found was pretty interesting. So if you focus on the bottom at the omega-3s, you see that individuals with medium to high levels of omega-3 fatty acids and not individuals with low levels of omega-3 fatty acids have an enhancement in this VO2 max to CRP reduction. That is to say that the slope of this blue line gets more steep if you have more polyunsaturated fatty acids, specifically omega-3 fatty acids. And so we drilled down a little bit further, and we were able to understand that the levels of this precursor fatty acid, alpha-linolenic acid, which is an omega-3, seem to be important in reducing the CRP levels as you increase your cardiorespiratory fitness. And interestingly, so did the precursor molecule DHA, which is probably most of you are familiar with fish oil. And so DHA levels seem to be important in this reduction of systemic inflammation as you increase your cardiorespiratory fitness. And so we were really excited about this study, and obviously we want to further understand if these specialized pro-resolving mediators are increased in human participants that undergo exercise, and we're undergoing those experiments now. So thank you for taking the time, letting me share some of our exciting findings with you all. And I will try to stop sharing. There we go.
Wow, that is really interesting, Jason. And hopefully those that are on Facebook Live or even tuning in after the fact will send questions, because I think this has lots of implications for our health. I think you have essentially shown us that, or demonstrated to us, a way by which obesity increases our cardiometabolic risk. And I think you've also demonstrated that inflammation predicts death, and that we're able to test this, and that obesity increases this inflammation risk. And so you found that omega-3s can help decrease the inflammation and improve our overall cardiovascular fitness. Do you have insight to share with people on how we can have access to increase our omega-3s?
It's the question that I always get asked, actually. So should I be taking the over-the-counter? And I would say, it might be better just to eat 2 to 3 servings of oily fish a week. The over-the-counter supplements are not obviously FDA regulated. Who knows how long they've been sitting on the shelf. Maybe they have some oxidized form of these compounds and we're not sure what they do. So I would hesitate a little bit about taking the over-counter non-regulated supplements, but I definitely partake in eating 2 to 3 servings of oily fish a week in order to get necessary DHA and EPA levels. So yeah, that's a very important point. Great question.
Great, thanks. It looks like Antigone has a reaction as well.
I did, and my first question was, what type of fish do you eat? Because I love salmon and some shrimp, but if there's any other fish that I should go,
Oh,
go right now.
The salmon's a good choice, but how do you cook it? Do you cook it well done? Because you could be actually losing some of the important fatty acids if it's cooked too long. So there's a lot of information out there trying to understand the degree at which you cook the fish, how that degrades the fish oil. That seems to be important. So a lot to consider. We're kind of just, there's a lot of information, but I think we're still needing to figure out a lot of these details.
I had no idea, actually, because I do cook it pretty well and like crusty. So I'm just thinking I'm just not eating crusty fish. I'm not taking any of that benefits, but that's good to know.
Wow, I'm learning a lot. That was a great question, Antigone. I actually was wondering similar, and now I know I cooked my salmon too long. Are there any others with any questions or reactions to what Jason has shared? Great. Well, congratulations on publishing this new research. May it be a valuable resource to others, and it sounds like it lays the foundation for further steps along this pathway to better understand nutrition and fitness and ways that we can protect our cardiovascular health and cardiometabolic health. So wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what brings you into this space from each of you. We all come into the science communication space from different areas, as folks heard when we introduced ourselves. We all have different vantage points by which we contribute to the research here or support the research here. But I don't think any of us listed communication as the pathway that led us here. So I'd love for you to describe that. Can I kick it off with Antigone? What brings you into science communication?
I think it's this awareness and sharing this information. I myself come back with a background of political science, and now I'm finishing up my MBA. Though I did take numerous communication courses, but I don't think each of those classes has really allowed me to just confirms that we have to share this information with the public. This is being done here locally in Louisville, in our community, and that's why I value my position where I am now, because I believe that I'm like that bridge between the public and what's currently happening. And the work that I see being done is just incredible, and it's all coming out of Environment Institute. And that's why I think these meetings are going to be so helpful and hopefully informational for to come back and watch these and connect with us in many areas of our social media platforms. We constantly share these research papers, whether you're on Twitter, or YouTube or Facebook. We really want to be interactive with the public, specifically our community here, and let them know what's happening, whether it's a new study on health or a new study about why trees are obviously the best thing you could do is live near near forest, or simply what's happening with COVID and this research behind that. Obviously, I'm not going to go into details because that's not my area of expertise, but I want to share that. I want to raise those issues and talk about that, and that's why I think communication is what it means to me in this particular situation.
Great. Antigone, you can popcorn it to the next person.
Yes. Well, I work closely with Lauren, so I figured, I'd let her speak more on why sharing this information has been so helpful in ensuring our public is up to date.
Great, and exactly. I come from a public health background. I worked with Louisville Metro government before joining the university for the Division of Health Promotion there. And that was when I first learned about the many health disparities that not only people in Louisville, but in cities across the United States experience because of where they live. And so it's very interesting to me how cities develop and what we can know about the environment and how it impacts people's health. And I think it's very clear that there's a lot of interest in wanting to know how to be healthy, how to maintain health. And if it's something that we are learning about here at the Environment Institute, generating lots of new knowledge about how people can be healthier where they live, how we can build healthier cities. Science communication is a big part of that. And going back to the wastewater research that we're doing, it's really interesting that by just looking at a sewer shed that thousands of people contribute to every time they flush the toilet, we can get an estimate of COVID infection or a multitude of other health indicators. I think looking at novel ways to monitor the environment is really the way things are going to go. And I just want to to let people know everything that we are doing here at the Envirome, so that it's very clear that science isn't scary, that science is approachable, because we all have to work together to build a healthy Louisville.
Beautiful. And you can popcorn it to the next person, Lauren.
I will popcorn to Dr. Lynch.
So my original interest in science communication came about kind of selfishly. For my first master's, I was focused on the old lead belt in Southeast Missouri. So this is the area where my family is from. I grew up very close to it. And as its name would suggest, there's a lot of lead down there. At one point in time, it was the #1 lead producer, I think, for the entire world. So there are plenty of lead mines. What are called chat dumps, which is just like the leftover dirt, dust, everything that came out of the mines that wasn't lead, except that these chat dumps do have small little particles of lead in them. So in the past probably decade and a half, it became a huge issue that the communities in the old lead belt basically had been using this chat for a variety of things, everything from playground filler to putting it down in football fields to putting it down on icy roads. Instead of salt, that all these people were inadvertently being exposed to lead. And lead exposure in children is well studied, but not so much in adults. But most of my family that was down there were adults. So I selfishly wanted to find out what were these individuals being exposed to in just their everyday environment from the Superfund sites. So the Superfund program, without getting too bogged down in details, basically oversees these different toxic waste sites or environmental toxic waste sites across the country. And the old lead belt had a number of these. And so I was doing research to see what was coming from the Superfund site and the work that the Superfund program had done, and was that sufficient? So as I came to U of L and I was doing work with environmental exposures and focusing more on air pollution, but when we got our Superfund grant to start our Superfund Research Center, I wanted to get involved in looking again at how do these Superfund sites affect the communities that are near them? And then furthermore, how can we take that information and share it with people in a way that can actually help them, instead of just knowing you live next to a Superfund site or near a Superfund site? Like, what can you actively do to make sure that anything that is on that site still is not posing a risk to your health? So that's kind of how I got into science communication. I'm now, as I said, part of the Superfund Research Center Community Engagement Corps. And that is exactly my job, is telling people what is coming from the Superfund sites, what they can do to prevent negative health impacts from those sites and from other sources of pollution, and then how they can just generally be have better health and be healthier individuals in and day out. So I will pop it over then to Dr. Hellmann.
All right, thank you, Ed. I think you guys have touched on every point, but if I were to add anything, I guess I would just say that science communication is embedded within science since the beginning of the field, right? So the only way to really have your work evaluated is for your peers to look over to see what you've done and see if what you have what you think you have proven, is it reproducible by others? And so communicating your ideas, thoughts, data has been embedded in science for years. But I think what we learned during the pandemic last year, and certainly as it's continuing, is that maybe reaching out a little bit more in different mediums and trying to get in touch with our communities more directly so that we can provide up-to-date information is effective, it's needed, and it's necessary. So I think the communications team here, that's what we're trying to do and trying to accomplish. So if there's, if you have any questions about science and you just want to reach out to one of us, just shoot us an email, drop us a line on Facebook. We'd be happy to talk with you. So.
Yes, I second that. Please, that's at least part of the purpose of what we're doing here. We want your questions, but we want to help be a bridge to the work of our researchers, our teams, and the people that we serve here. But science and knowledge is power. And so science, I believe in science to inform policy and science to inform decision making, and that knowledge is power. And it empowers our communities, members of our communities, but it also gives insight for decision making and policy making. And so that's what excites me about science communication. In the field of environmental health, we have a saying that we're great at talking to each other. So we're great at throwing around jargon and acronyms, and that's not as accessible to the wider audience. So my interest in science communication is making sure that the great work that we do is accessible and that it's understandable to a wide variety of audiences. And science communication, I believe, underscores the success of every public health intervention. And I heard Antigone speak to this before. No time in our lived history, at least those of us that are in this conversation right now, has science communication been shown to be more important than it is now. It certainly has been important throughout history, but we're seeing and experiencing the importance of valuing strong scientific communication. And also to speak to what Lauren shared, that ineffective communication can contribute to disparities. So having opportunities to counter that is of great personal importance to me, and that's why I'm grateful to be a part of this team. So I've had the great experience to take scientific research and make that into fact sheets or make that into webinars for different audiences, reports, and also scientific papers. And each of these have different audiences, and that excites me. I love taking the best and most available knowledge out there and the knowledge that we bring and making that accessible to a wide group. But I also want to speak to the value of social media very quickly. I was challenged by my former supervisor to get on Twitter, and I won't tell all the ways that my arm was twisted because I was very hesitant and resistant, and I absolutely love it. I love social media as a evolving, emerging, and very present means to also further help us get the word out. Case in point, we're sharing, we're having this open meeting on social media. So please reach out through all the many channels to access us and keep the conversation going. Very quick before we wrap up for the day, we wanted to share with you about a couple upcoming events. So I'll turn it to Lauren. What is happening in the space of wastewater?
Wonderful. So this Saturday and next Saturday at the Logan Street Markets Maker and Growers Fair, you will be able to talk with wastewater researchers and myself about all the different things that we are doing, looking for in those sewer samples. So again, twice a week, we take samples from sewer sheds across the community. We look very deeply to see what is in those so we can report to Louisville Metro about virus levels and variants. And so you'll hear from researchers, you'll be able to touch some of the materials that we work with, and you'll be able to see some of the results that we have been seeing over the past little bit. And so again, that's the next 2 Saturdays at Logan Street Markets Maker and Growers Fair. Jason, a little bit ago, talked about a great way to get in touch with anyone at the Envirome Institute, and that is to email us. So if anyone would like to do that, that email address is envirome@louisville.edu.
Wonderful. Thanks for making sure people have a means to be able to reach out and connect with us. And there's one more event that we'd like to share about. We have upcoming community knowledge exchange sessions through our Superfund Research Programs Community Engagement Core. Jordan, would you like to share about some upcoming plans that are being developed?
Yeah, so we don't have a finalized date for this event yet. We do know it'll be sometime towards the end of August, but our community knowledge exchange sessions are just a way for us to share in a very public setting the information that is coming out of the Superfund Research Center with the general public. As the title would suggest, we are a community knowledge exchange session. We are exchanging that knowledge with the community. So our first CKES was held last month, no, May, sorry, my months are confused, was held at the end of May and focused on volatile organic compounds, which are these toxic compounds that are found all throughout the environment, some, cleaning products to factories to car exhaust. They're just everywhere. So our first exchange session focused on where sources of personal exposures to these compounds are. And the one coming up in August will then focus on more neighborhood and community sources. So, different businesses, industry, things like that. So we will have more information for you on that coming up. As I said, we haven't finalized the date, but we do know it will be sometime near the end of August. So we'll be sharing more information about that on the Envirom's various social media accounts, hopefully very soon. So please stay tuned for that. We'd love to have you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Lauren. We look forward to updates when we open our doors again in the future, updates on these and certainly upcoming activities as well. And to our audience, please reach out to us at envirom@louisville.edu if you have questions or are interested in getting further involved with the work of the Envirom Institute. Thank you for your time. Don't hesitate to also reach out to us through our Facebook channel that you may be watching us on as we speak. But with that, we thank you for your time. We thank you for this great opportunity to open our doors of our communications meeting with you and to share around science communications. Thank you very much and have a great day.